Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for Turn Season 1, Episode 10, The Battle of Setauket. And this was the season finale, of course, possibly the series finale, because we don't know if this show is getting renewed or not, which, personally, I think after this episode, yes, it should get renewed, because I will definitely be watching Season 2. Season 2, they've already set up, it's going to be a lot more interesting than Season 1 because of that big thing at the end that's really, really big, and that I really liked. I really liked the cliffhanger at the end of this episode. I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes. But overall, this episode, I really, really enjoyed it. What I also like is that we focused a lot more on Mary in this episode, and this episode actually got us to care for Mary a little bit more, I think, and I definitely enjoyed that more about this episode because we cared more about her. And I really liked that about this episode. Kind of unexpected that they did that, but yeah, I really enjoyed that. And before I get to the season finale, let me just explain how I've liked Turn so far. Turn overall, I think, is AMC's weakest series. However, this episode has the potential to make it really, really good, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what AMC does with it next. So, we see, remember how Mary went through that book last week and she looked very surprised? We actually hear what Mary saw in that book. You know, she pages through Abe's code book, and she spots familiar names, you know, Setauket, General Washington, and of course C. Brewster. These are names that she knows, of course. What she does not know is, of course, him being a spy. She doesn't know about all of that right now. So Ben and Caleb, they arrive on the Long Island shore, and Caleb is insistent that they attack immediately, but Ben decides to hold off after realizing that some of the other whereabouts, including Sela's, were waylaid because during their crossing of Long Island Sound. So Abe arrives home to find Mary there, and right away we can see that Mary is very pissed off at Abe. I really love this next scene. I think this is some of the best acting we've seen on this show so far. Definitely this episode had some of the best acting we've seen so far, and I really love that about this next scene. Basically, Abe arrives home to find Mary there to assuage her fears that Richard's attacker will come from them, and Abe confides that Simcoe shot Richard, and she refuses to believe him. You know, he thinks that Simcoe shot Richard, and she does not believe him. You know, she then questions his fidelity, and basically she says, look, you are supposed to be faithful to me. You're supposed to be, you know, if you really cared about me, why would you do this to me? And she's kind of very skeptical. She doesn't know about the whole him and Anna sleeping together. They then have sex, surprisingly, which I didn't expect to happen, but that happened. And then Abe awakens early the next morning. Mary's already up and dressed, expecting him to join her for a shopping trip. I didn't expect that to happen. I didn't expect them to have sex, but okay. So then on the shorelines, we see Ben and Caleb strategize on how to proceed with entering Setauket. The rest of the whereabouts finally arrive, and in the early morning light, they're spotted by Setauket residents, and William Blaine and his younger son Tom, who are headed to the shore to fish, and Caleb knocks William unconscious, but Tom escapes on a horse. So at the church, Tom tells Simcoe that Ben is descending on Setauket with hundreds of soldiers, and Simcoe retrieves the rebel prisoners from the tavern cellar, intending to hang them before Ben and the rebels arrive. I mean, it's really intense here, because it's really heating up. The intensity's really high here, and I love that about this episode, that it was just really, really high intensity. So Hewlett suits up for battle, and he dispatches an office to request reinforcements from Captain Floyd, in Sag Harbor. He orders Richard, still recovering, and Richard, we can see, is still recovering from his gunshot wound. You know, he's still not in the best of shape, but he offers him to, basically stay at Whitehall and rest, so Richard is gonna, rest, because he's got that bad gunshot wound, so obviously they're not gonna let him, they're not gonna let anything bad happen to him. So as the Redcoats place Moises Payne's head in a noose, very intense scene here, they're putting people's head in nooses. Ben's men charge across the field. Simcoe kicks out the gallows platform, hanging Payne. They take the other prisoners to the church. Ben sees Simcoe holding a gun to Reverend Talmage's head and orders a retreat, because obviously that's his father, so obviously he doesn't want to see him kill his father. So in town, we see Ben tells Caleb to gather the townspeople and the captured Redcoats in the tavern. So Sela arrives with his men, announcing himself by shooting the tavern sign, which now says Dijon Tavern rather than Strawn Tavern. and he strides up to Anna, who is stunned to see him, and kisses her, and Abe glares at Caleb, who shrugs, and that was a pretty surprising thing there. I didn't expect that to happen. So as Ben follows Hewlett's movements through his spyglass, he tells Caleb to collect the British stash of gunpowder from the schoolhouse. So Hewlett forbids Simcoe from hanging the rest of the prisoners because he just does not think it's the right thing to do. Again, I really like seeing this conflict between Hewlett and Simcoe. It really shows how different both of them are. Simcoe's kind of just like, alright, let's do this now, while Hewlett's kind of thinks things through first, but Simcoe's kind of just like the evil one, and Hewlett's the guy that, is the one that's in charge, really. So he peers through his spyglass, he sees Caleb gathering this cask of gunpowder, and he said, "You secured the prisoners, but not the powder," and he hits to Simcoe, ordering his men to fire cans at the schoolhouse. And Sela then learns that Anna was forced to sell the tavern to Dejan, and vows to dispute the attender with Richard. So the Redcoats fire at the schoolhouse, they blow it up in a fiery explosion. Richard arrives to the church unexpectedly, and Hewlett ushers him inside. So at the tavern, Ben orders Sela to take his men and attack Hewlett's flank. So basically, then we see Mary's prodding, and Abe tells Ben they'll never take the church garrison, and they'll end up getting all of the prisoners killed. Ben then introduced himself to Mary. It's a very, very important scene. He says he's never actually met Mary before, so he says, "I seem to remember your husband as a much quieter man." That's a very big thing because, of course, Ben is the guy that Abe is doing all this spy stuff for, so it's very interesting because if Ben says something to Mary that she does not know, then he could blow Abe's cover. It's going to not be good because Mary doesn't know about that. She's already very suspicious of Abe, so that's a really big scene there because we didn't really know what was going to happen, and I thought that was definitely very well done the way they did that, and overall I really enjoyed that scene. I thought it was very well done. So Simcoe then urges Hewlett to keep bombarding the town, but Hewlett refused to level Setauket. And Sela's men fire at the garrison, forcing Hewlett to retreat into the church. Simcoe uses Reverend Talmadge as a human shield, and that was pretty big. So Ben enlists Abe to deliver peace terms to Hewlett and asks Anna to unlock the cellar so they can discuss the terms in private. So they're in the cellar. We now have in the cellar Abe, Ben, Caleb, and Anna. They're now in the cellar and they're convening. And Abe is angrily asking why they're attacking Setauket. He doesn't think it's the right thing to do. And Ben responds that they learned about the Hangs and rushed there to stop them, and with no time to send a warning. And Abe explains that their death sentences were reduced to prison time on the Jersey. And Ben replies that Samuel died on the Jersey and that he refuses to let his father die the same way. Anna then yells at Ben and Caleb for keeping Sela's survival a secret. Abe then decides, you know what? This is too much for me. I don't agree what you're doing. I'm done. I'm done with the spying, and I'm done with it. Which is really surprising because the whole show is basically, it's called Turn, the untold story of America's first spy ring, and now Abe's not a spy anymore, so it's pretty big there, and I thought it was very surprising that happened. I didn't expect that to happen, but I really enjoyed that because I didn't expect that to happen, and I thought that was actually very well done. So, as far as Abe not being a spy now I'm wondering who is going to be a spy, because Abe's no longer the spy for Ben, so we'll have to see who the spy is going to be. So then, Abe is waving a white flag, and he approaches the church, and inside he tells Hewlett that the Continentals are willing to trade the captured Redcoats for the rebel prisoners. Simcoe screams at Hewlett to kill the enemy, and grows even more agitated when Hewlett considers the peace terms. And the peace terms are all they require is proper motivation. And Simcoe shouts, he drags Lucas Brewster outside, shoots and kills him, and screams at the rebel lines. Simcoe is just Simcoe is pissed off at this point. Simcoe then re-enters the church, and Hewlett orders his men to arrest him. Simcoe resists, and Hewlett's men drag him to the floor, and he says, you deserve what's coming to you, Oyster Major. Simcoe shouts, Hewlett responds by roughly gagging Simcoe. So yeah, that was really surprising. I don't know what happened to Simcoe, though, because we didn't see what happened to Simcoe after that. All we know is that Simcoe was there, now he's not. Is he dead? I don't know. I don't think Simcoe is dead. I'm pretty sure Simcoe's not dead. I don't know, but I don't know what happened, because after that scene, we didn't see Simcoe, so I really don't know. So now, I really enjoyed this next scene. I thought the scene was definitely really good. And basically, Richard advises Hewlett, they're talking, and he says he knows that at New Fears, he's been forced into a fight to the death to let the prisoners go to Reverend Talmadge can convince Ben to leave. And Hewlett releases the prisoners, the rebels fall back, Hewlett and Ben exchange bows from across the field, and basically, they have now decided to put a stop. Then what happens is basically, then what happens is Abe tells Ben that he wants to keep spying, because, he decided, what, I will keep spying. But not as, Culper, but as Culper, not Culpepper. So Mary hugs Abe. Abe and Anna exchange sad glances as Anna leaves with Sela. And it's pretty sad, though. So that's the last scene we actually see of Anna. So Captain Floyd finally arrives with his men, first frustrating Hewlett with his tardiness. And Sela helps Anna into one of the whaleboats, shoves it off. A group of pursuing redcoats arrive, watches from the shorelines as they row away, and Abe arrives as well, and he and Anna lock eyes across the water, and she says, "I'm sorry." And Anna tells Sela the cause needs me here. She jumps overboard, swims ashore. Abe helps her get out of the water as Sela watches them from the boat. This is pretty big. She just called Abe the cause. Which is a pretty big thing, and it secretly means that really Abe means more to Anna than her own husband does, which is really big. So yeah, that was I wasn't surprised by that, of course, because we know Anna was going to do something like that, but yeah, that was pretty big. So then in New York, John Andre informs Robert Rogers that as a result of Rogers firing on Continental soldiers during the prisoner exchange, General Howe has ordered Rogers be relieved as head of the Queen's Rangers. Now, Rogers approaches Andre menacingly, but pauses as he realizes Andre's men has stationed just outside the room. Rogers threatens repercussions, then exits, cackling as he departs. So, basically, the war is over. The war is now over, and that's what they've decided to do. They decided to put a stop to the war, and it's over now. So, I was a little surprised that the American Revolution is done now, but yeah, that was pretty big. And then we get the most surprising scene in the episode. I love the last scene in this episode. That was definitely very well done, the way they did this last scene. So we see Abe. He's at home, and he's walking in to find Mary, burning his coat. He's looking for Mary. He's like, "Where are you? Where's Thomas?" He doesn't know where Thomas is or anything. And Mary is burning his code book, and she screams, "You are a traitor, an adulterer, and a spy for Washington." She knows everything now. She now knows that he is a spy. She knows that he had sex with Anna. She knows everything now. She is just pissed off. And then we see Ensign Baker. He walks in, and he's heard literally everything. I mean, that was really, really big. He's heard everything, and he's about to, he's heard everything and says he must turn Abe in. He's about to arrest Abe and basically say, "Look, I know what you're doing, so because of that, I have to arrest you." But before anything happens, Abe draws his gun on Baker. He then offers to run away and never return. And he says, "You must be a treasonous, Mr. Woodhull, but I can't be." As Baker reaches for his rifle, Abe then shoots and he kills him. So yes, Abe has just killed somebody from, someone that wasn't, someone that was his enemy. It was actually someone who could have helped him, but now Abe is a killer, he's killed somebody, and Mary right away, she sees what he's doing, and she actually decides to follow him, and she decides to come up with a cover-up story. And the story is that Baker was shot while trying to stop some fleeing rebels, who then burned down the house. And so basically, because of that happening, they now have to burn down their house, and basically they have to go somewhere else. So Mary joins him as they watch as their house goes up in flames with Baker's body inside. And that's how it ended. So I thought it was a really great ending, personally. I thought it was a really, really great finale. I love this finale. I thought it was really, really intense. I really loved the plot in this episode. Very, very strong episode. Really, really enjoyed it. Couple things I do want to talk about, though. Now, alright, so 1. Will this show be renewed for a season 2? I really hope it does, but I don't know if it's going to. 1, it's up against Game of Thrones. That's one of the big things. It's always been up against Game of Thrones, and it's never really had the ratings that Game of Thrones has. I know they want to make it as big as Game of Thrones, but it really was not as big as Game of Thrones. It's still a very good show, but it's not as big as Game of Thrones. It's not like they wanted it to be. 2, I don't know, I know where the story could continue, but there are some things that they needed to tie up a little bit, and overall, I am looking forward to seeing that in the next season. But the other thing I'm wondering is, what's going to happen now, because it looked like Mary was about to leave Abe. I really thought she was going to, but now Mary has decided to actually, stay with Abe, and Mary, and possibly think this could be the only possible way to fix her marriage, possibly. I think that's what she's trying to think. She's thinking, hey, look, if I want to save my marriage with Abe, then maybe the only way to do that is to follow him. Abe is now a killer, though, so Abe is going to be a very different type of character next season, which I'm really looking forward to seeing how he's going to be next season, because he's going to definitely be a very different type of character. That's going to be very interesting to watch, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he is going to be in the next season. It's going to be really cool to watch. Also, Anna. Is Anna gone from the show? Because I did not see Anna after this episode. Anna, of course, is also following Abe, and Mary knows about Anna, so maybe there's going to be like a love triangle between the three of them, I don't know, and also Sela, because Sela now knows that she left him for Abe, so we'll have to see what happens there. I'm really not sure. As far as Simcoe, is Simcoe dead? I really don't know. I don't think Simcoe is dead, because he's a very good villain, I'll say that. He's a very good villain, very strong villain. I really am enjoying his character a lot, and especially this episode, he made some very harsh decisions, so if he is dead, I understand that, but at the same time, I don't want him to be dead, because he's a really good character, and I've really been loving his stuff that he's been doing this season. Let's talk about Turn as a whole now, because, you know, the season has ended. Let's talk about what I've thought about the show. This show, for me, as I said, it is AMC's weakest show. When it first started out, I really did not know what to think of it. I'm going to admit that right now. Yes, I like the show, guys, but after the first episode, I'm like, I don't really know what to think of this show. I don't know how it's going to last. I don't know what's going to happen. And now I'm really interested in seeing where it's going to go, because Abe is still a spy, but now he's killed someone. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there, and I'm looking forward to that, actually. So it's going to be really interesting. I think the show just got a lot more interesting in those last 3 episodes. It really did. Actually, no, I'd say after Mercy Moment, Murder Measure, it got really, really interesting. And I really love that about this show, that it just got more and more interesting after every episode. And those last 4 episodes, you know, best episode of the season, best episode of the season, best episode of the season. And this is by far the best episode of the season. I mean, just wow, I loved everything about this, this finale. It was definitely very, very well done. Of course, there's also Ben and Caleb. We don't really know what they're doing next season. I really don't know. I mean, we know that Abe is going to continue to spy for Ben, but now the American Revolution's over, so what's going to happen with that? My other question is George Washington. George Washington was in the show for 2 episodes, and we haven't seen him since then, so I don't know what's going to happen to him. I guess we'll just have to see, and I'm wondering where his character is, where he's going to go next season. I'm thinking we are going to see him again. But if this show does not get canceled, then, if this show does get canceled, then I do expect I do expect it. I'm going to say this, if it gets canceled, it's not going to be unexpected, because I expected the show to not last that long. But if the show does get canceled, it's been a really great show. I've really been enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to next season a lot. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens next season. Alright, so that's it for my review of Turn. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for Penny Dreadful. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.